Well, good morning and welcome to the Wednesday Pastor Check-In with Pastor Brian. That's me. It's good to be with you once again on this Wednesday morning. I am here from another kitchen. There are quite a few in the church. This is a kitchen that many of you may be familiar with, the kitchen up in Parish Hall, which primarily these days is used for the Tuesday night meal open table. Right now it's going through the drive-through. It's got a drive-through way that they're doing that, but they still cook and prepare most of the meals up in here. Sometimes when we have events in our parish hall, we use this for United Methodist men's suppers and other events as well. So this is a space historically that has hosted many meals going back through the history of the church. And so I am here. It's quite a large kitchen, so it's another place that I occasionally will come to just hide. Don't tell anybody, but I am here as a way of thinking about bodily health. And this topic came to me in an interesting way. Yesterday I was on a residence in ministry call, which is something that those who are going through the process for ordination, United Methodist Church, we go through a residential program in ministry. And the topic yesterday was on well-being. And we talked about physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. But physical well-being was an interesting topic, and I hearkened back to my seminary days where I learned about primitive physic, which is a book in the 1700s that was written by the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. Now you may wonder why he was writing a book, a theologian, a pastor was writing a book about health and wellness. This book was actually, I've got some notes here about it. It pretty much had every single disease or ailment that was known of, a brief description of it, and a range of treatments, most of them homeopathic or home remedies with herbs or other supplements that were readily available to most people. So he listed down all of these different ailments and how we might treat them, also the symptoms so you might know if you have it or not. And believe it or not, this book was actually one of the most popular medical books of its time, and it went into 23 editions. 23 editions of this book, Primitive Physic, that really just, it was a medical book that took you through all of these different ailments and what to do about them. Now, a little bit of context here. You know, being in the 1740s, it looks like is when it first came out, was called Primitive Physic, or An Easy and Natural Method of Curing Most Diseases, was the name of the book. It was actually well before what we would know of as modern medicine. Of course, the advent of modern science and the way that we treat diseases now is much different than reading a book and making a homeopathic remedy at home. But at the time, without all of this modern medicine and advancements, most of what people did beyond grave illnesses was to find ways to cure, to treat at home. And it related to Wesley's belief, John Wesley's belief, that salvation and care and holiness was a holistic thing. It happened in body, mind, and spirit. All of this. And so really, care of body was an extension of that. We're experiencing some of this care of body work now. We leave it mostly to the doctors and the experts who know way more, of course, than John Wesley did about the inner workings of one's body. But really, it's an extension of this care of body. And it reminds me in this time, as we have a lot of hope and trust that we place in our scientists, and those that are working hard on our behalf to come up with remedies, treatments, and vaccines, and also just telling us what mitigation efforts in terms of COVID-19 work best. It's a reminder that we do it out of a sense of deep care, that our bodies are a gift from God, and that we ought to do what we need to do to make them well. And for John Wesley, with what they knew at that time, and frankly, if you read through some of these, maybe I can post the link below, there are actually some pretty good ideas. You know, we have a lot of modern medicines and chemical-based drugs that treat some of our ailments, but there are some good homeopathic stuff that it's good to lean on, you know, all natural stuff. But really, with what he knew at the time, the question was simple. What do I need to do to be well? And so John Wesley, who was scientific in his own right, would come back to this again and again, this idea of, if it will make you well, do it. This kind of simple, common sense approach to health. And while we do have these modern medicines, it is important to come back to that idea of, if it will make you well, do it. Whether it's in body, mind, or spirit. And there's a quote from the book that kind of summates his idea on caring for one's health that I think both helps us understand who he was as someone who was influenced by Eastern Orthodox ideas of holistic health, but also helps us to think, and I give it to you today as a way of thinking about our health and how we do all of these efforts as we are headed into a deeper mitigation effort as a society, how we do all of these things to care for our health. John Wesley wrote this: "But can there nothing be found to lessen these inconveniences which cannot be wholly removed, to soften the evils of life, and prevent in part the sickness and pain to which we are continually exposed? Without question there may. Without question we can act as to prevent a measure of sickness and pain. As the words of Proverbs also instruct, one who is wise is careful and avoids trouble, but the fool is reckless and overconfident." That's from Proverbs 14. These words from John Wesley and this ancient reminder from Proverbs, are a reminder that there are things we can do and things we should do to care for our health, to care for each other's health, so that we can avoid the evils of life, or at least some of them, that come from sickness and pain and suffering. Certainly we can't avoid all suffering in this life, but there are things that we can do, natural or not, to prevent suffering for ourselves, and by virtue of caring and loving for our neighbor, prevent suffering for other people. So I hope this is of interest to you. It's always interesting for me to think about how John Wesley was a scientist and had this really popular medical volume that for many decades was popular. It's always interesting for me to think about that as a reminder that we see God as the great physician, guiding us and encouraging us to be well in all of its sense. So I leave that for you today, hoping that you are well. And of course, we want to know if you are not. So drop a line to let us know that you're here, and let me know if there's anything, whether you want to send a private message or not, that we need to be prayed for as it relates to care for body, but also in other ways as well. So it's good to be with you on this Wednesday morning. Stay well. We're in this together as we continue to, as a church, be more closed down and a society be more closed down. I hope that our hearts will continue to remain open and caring for one another. God bless you, and God be with you.